Okay, so now that we've mastered all these other techniques, it is time to get into 3D sculpted embossing. Really quick before I jump into Illustrator, I just wanted to reiterate a few things before we go into this, just in case you decided to skip ahead to this module and missed some of my other points or anything. Just a reminder that this is definitely more of an expert level technique, and you should really be familiar with your press at this point before diving into 3D dyes and prints. When you are ready for 3D embossing, start with a small design first and work your way up to larger designs. This will help you really get a feel for it, kind of learn how the process works with your die maker, and get comfortable before you start spending really high dollar amounts on big dies that maybe won't work out. And again, I know I've said this a million times, but just trust and lean on your die maker, especially with 3D embossing. They're the ones that are going to create all of those layers of depth when they take your design and bring it to fruition, and they are good at it. So this is the design that I have ready to send to my die maker, Metal Magic. You do not have to add like various shades of black to your file like I did here. Your die maker will do that for you. I'm just kind of type A planner, and I wanted to visualize it myself, and just from doing my own wax seal engraving before, I kind of was familiar with the process that like the black is generally like the deepest engraving, and then the lighter shades of gray are usually a little more shallow and whatnot. And I kind of wanted to envision it in my head as I went along. So just a note that like you don't have to do that. It can just be all one color, and it can even be like more outlined. It doesn't have to be filled in shapes like this. Again, I just went the extra mile because I'm crazy and visual and wanted to do it myself a little bit partially, but your die maker will be able to kind of take your design and run with it. Before I send this, I do want to add my drill holes on here. This will be a 1/4 inch die, and so I want to make sure those are included. If you don't have the template for the die holes for your KSF3, I've linked that below. I'll go ahead and open that really quick and show you guys just in case you're not familiar. Okay, so this is the template that aligns with your drill holes on your KSF3. I don't believe this has changed at all, but I do want to preface that my KSF3 is like at least 5 years old now. I know they've made some modifications over time, so you might double check with Metallic Elephant and make sure this template still applies, but if not, I've gone ahead and dropped this below for you guys in case you don't have it already and want to access it. This basically just shows you where the drill holes are on your KSF3. I went ahead and turned off my grid lines there. So like I already have them on here, but say I didn't, say this was just my design and I'm ready to go. I want to print this like kind of on the corner or edge of a sheet of paper is my goal, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure all my items are grouped together here, copy it, and then paste onto my template here. And again, you want to center this as much as you can. It's going to make your job a little bit easier when it comes to printing. I typically only grab 2 drill holes. You can do more if you want. I've just never really found that it's needed, especially for smaller dies like this. If it was a really big heavy die, maybe, but it also like kind of adds to the costs because they'll be, you know, printing more of the brass die around the edges when you add those additional drill holes, and I am always being frugal as a small business owner, so I usually just do two drill holes. So you would just, you know, center it and grab whatever 2 drill holes work best. I would definitely recommend doing opposite sides, so either these 2 drill holes or, you know, these 2. And then you would copy that all together and paste it into a new artboard, and just make sure that this little button here makes it so that you can resize your artboard around, and just make sure it's kind of to the size of your artboard. Again, your die maker will kind of do that for you, but I usually just, I guess by habit, do it anyways. But so that's it. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then in the next video I'll walk you through how to send this file to your die maker. So you have your design done and ready to send to Metal Magic or your engraver. Now let's talk about what you need to know when placing your order. So this is the process that I did with Metal Magic. It might look slightly different if you have a different die maker. I have linked below some alternative options of different companies that you can order from or try out. But as you know, I love and prefer Metal Magic. So the first thing I want to do is email Betsy. I have linked her email here and below. You will want to let her know exactly what you want. So say I want a 3D sculpted die. and you'll attach your artwork. And then one really important thing is the paper weight. So GSM is the weight of your paper. So whatever you're planning to print on, she needs to know what the paper weight is. That way, when they etch the layers of depth in the artwork, they will make sure that it works for that paper specifically. I actually had an issue with this originally myself. I told them my paper weight, but it being handmade paper just behaves very differently, and they weren't really taking that into account. They were kind of thinking it was just standard paper, even though I told them it was handmade paper, but it's fine. I was able to send the die back to them along with my handmade paper, and they were able to fix the die and test it on my specific handmade paper to make sure it was working and then send it back to me. So if you are printing on somewhat of a specialty paper, you could ask them if that's an option, if you could send them the paper to try. But if not, just know that they will, their customer service is great. If there is an issue, they will do their best to help you fix it. And if you're printing on a pretty like standard paper, like if you're printing on Lettra, you shouldn't have any issues because they will know what Lettra is. It's probably what the majority of their clients print on, and they'll be able to, test in their shop with probably Lettra they have lying around too. So you can also attach some inspiration photos if you want. I think this is pretty optional, kind of just gives the engravers an idea of what you are wanting. But once they have all of this information, they will send you a quote and a 3D rendering. I'm going to show you what that mock-up looks like now because it's very cool. You will just approve that and then they will make your die. Okay, so here's the 3D rendering they sent me. This is literally just based off of that Illustrator file we just looked at. You will see at the top here, there's kind of these different tools. The big one you'll want to know is up here. So using rotate or spin or pan, like you can kind of, go side to side. And you can just kind of like zoom in, zoom out, check out all your details, make sure everything looks right. Really highlighted, but there is zooming. I can zoom in and then pan and maybe look at some of the details. Make sure that I like what they've done, which I do. So I just went ahead and emailed Betsy back once she sent me this and said approved. I love it. Once you send off your file, you'll wait for them to make that and send it your way. And then next lesson, I'm going to go through how to set up your die on your press. So I'm going to show you here. You have your female here, which is going to be on your chase, and then you have the male, which is going to be stuck to your plate bed or your table. So I'm going to go ahead and screw in the brass die first. So I'm going to try to mock this up in the center. That looks good. One little note, if you're using the screws that came with your KSF3 press, you will not have any issues. But if you did order those screws from Amazon that I use, they are a little too long for the die and it prints a little bit. I actually went and took this screw and sanded it down to make it more flush. But if you have the screws from Metallic Elephant, you won't have an issue. But I just wanted to mention that just in case you're like me and accidentally stripped all your good screws from them. So again, just don't over tighten that. And once you have that in place, you want to line up your plastic part on top. They will fit together perfectly between the male and the female. And you kind of want to push it in to those little plastic pegs so that it is sitting in place. But one little note is that you kind of want it to be flush. Like you don't want the little red plastic peg to be like sticking out past the plastic male. Because when we add the double-sided tape on here and transfer this to the press, we want it to be able to easily come off of this and not be like, we want it to be able to easily come off of it. So you can use double-sided tape here if you want, but I actually had a lot of trouble using that. It didn't stick very well, so I just sprayed this with a layer of Super 77, and I'm going to put it back on here, kind of try to push on those pins so it aligns, and now I'm going to go put it on the press. Okay, so the main objective here is to transfer this here to my plate base pretty seamlessly. So I went ahead and loosened all of my impression screws in the back so that I know I have some give, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp it down, and I'm going to go ahead and try to tighten some of those screws just to see if it can't help adhere that plate really good before I release it. I just want to make sure that it transfers to my plate. Okay, so I think it's touching on all the sides. I'm going to go ahead and try to pry it apart and see how this works, and I'm taking a palette knife to just kind of grab it just in case it sticks in any spots. Cool. Okay, so there was like one corner that was sticking a little bit, but all the other three stuck really well. So I'm just going to push down on this really well on all four sides and make sure that it's stuck there really well. And then I want to remove all four of these little pin screws. It's kind of hard to do this on the plate bed. I have to use some pliers. And it's a little easier to do it if you take it off. If you take it off again and put it on a table and pry it off, those out, it's a little bit easier to do that. So I'm going to do that now. All right, let's go ahead and turn it on. And let's crank the heat up pretty high here. I'm going to set it there and then wait a little bit for the press to heat up. So my press is still heating up a little bit, but while it is, I want to go ahead and start just getting my registration in place and maybe adjusting my impression a little bit. It'll just get a little bit easier and sharper as the press continues to get hot. Right now I'm not super worried about registration. I kind of just want to see where it's at. But I'm just going to pull a print and see where we're at. And this is a make ready, so you might notice some prints from the last thing I used. Okay. So here's where I'm at. I definitely think I can get more impression overall. And then of course I am not getting anything over here. So I do want to tighten the screws wherever that is. Let's go ahead and put it back where it was so I can see. Okay, so down here is where that is. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten the bottom screws and maybe even the middle screw a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull a clean print now and see what this looks like. Right. It's looking super good over here and in here, but I'm getting a little more detail up here, but not much. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten more over there again. So I'm just gonna kind of do the same thing I did before. It's especially on this side, so maybe I'll do this one too. And a little more on my bottom left screw. I'm trying to decide if I should do the middle or not. I think I'm gonna leave the middle and do a little bit on that edge. All right, let's do another one and see where we're at. Ooh. Alrighty. So it's looking really good. I'm pretty happy with it. I think with just a few minor adjustments we'll be there. Now you'll see my screw is printing here, but this will be on the edge of my paper, so that won't be an issue once I get to that point. I'm gonna just go ahead and see if I can't just make a few more adjustments here to get slightly more. And then also I'm only at 180 degrees temperature right now, so now maybe I'll wait 10 minutes and come back and show you guys kind of what it looks like once the press is heated up a little more. I wanted to show you also quickly how you might add some packing behind certain areas if you want them to print a little sharper. Like I feel like this is printing super well, but like over here it's not as much. So I'm going to cut a piece of paper to basically sandwich between my paper and the plates so that when it prints it pushes into those a little bit more. So I'm just going to cut this to be around the same size as that area. So let's do like maybe there. And then let's see, I'm going to change my angle here so I can show you how this sets up on press. Okay, so the details that I'm wanting to print behind are right here. So I'm gonna just tape this like right here. Let's just go ahead and see how that prints. I think this paper is a little too thick. Usually I would do something a little thinner. So we're probably gonna get a line where that paper ends. But I just wanna show you guys how to do this so that you'll know. I would, you could do something like as thin as like just a computer sheet of paper, even like newspaper, something really, really thin, if you really needed to do that. Okay, so All right, so you can see this is printing a lot sharper, and so is this. Honestly, I'm kind of feeling it, so maybe I'll leave that sheet of paper there. I'm surprised it's not showing up at all in my print, but I kind of like it. So you can always do something like that to fix certain areas if you want. Okay, so that's a little overview of 3D sculpted embossing. One takeaway that I wanted to share with you from this particular design was that part of the reason that I was having issues getting those, like, that one corner to print on the one side or show up a little bit more clear, was a lot of it was because the very fine line that I had kind of connecting the leaves together, the vine to the leaves, was a pretty thin line right next to that really big flower. And really having those right next to each other with that really thin line made it really difficult. I'm not going to be buying a new plate for this. I was able to make it work by adding that little additional sheet of packing. But if I were to create something similar to this again, or did want to reorder the plate for any crazy reason, I would just make that line a little bit thicker. So for reference, the line that I had there was 0.8 point stroke. And if I were to reorder this, I would just take that the smallest, thinnest lines and maybe bump them up to more like 1.25 or even 1.5 stroke if it still looked good. And those will print out clearer and crisper if you do so.